Hey, all you happy lost souls. Thank you all for your support. The channel is really growing. I'm creeping up towards that 1,000 subscriber mark. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Please turn on notifications, comment. Like I said, this channel is a very open place for academic discussion on some things throughout history that kind of have been controlled by paradigms like archaeology in North America and all the artifactual stuff that you're seeing laid out here. Excuse me. It all comes from a few areas, a few stream systems in southeastern Pennsylvania. And if you're new to the channel is pretty much just a lot of original music that I'll post. I'm a singer-songwriter, and the other thing that I do is I'm an amateur archaeologist slash geologist, and I've found some things that maybe shouldn't be in North America that don't really fit the timelines. But southeastern Pennsylvania, where I am, just right outside of Philadelphia pretty much, a little bit northwest of the city, there's a ton of geology, and there's parts of the Earth's mantle that were pushed up by the collision between the plates from the ocean, the Atlantic plate, and the North American land plate along the East Coast. I'm not going to get too technical with everything, but essentially a layer of the mantle got pushed up between two plates. It's called an uptick. Miocene gneiss got exposed, a lot of schist, all kinds of metals that run through the schist. They were then geologically exposed to the proper conditions for millions of years to literally cook these metals, and the main metal in the schist is aluminum. So under the right conditions, under heat, that aluminum gets cooked out of the schist in between the layers that are free of silicates. Aluminum oxide cannot form where silicates are. That's why it's very rare and doesn't exist in a lot of places. Silicates compose about 90% of the Earth's crust. Silicates is sand, sandstone, quartz, feldspar, mica, anything glass related essentially. So obviously it's hard for aluminum oxide, which again, really nice examples of aluminum oxide are known as sapphires, rubies. The technical term is a corundum. That's the rock form of a sapphire, and they form these backwards hexagonal diagonals, and they grow in different matrices. You get like here's some corundum right here, some rough blue sheen sapphire. It's a blue sapphire with gold sheening in it, but you see it's trying to one side, two sides, three side, four side, six sides. You're trying to get that hexagonal shape, and this one there's literally two corundums that form two different shapes or patterns. You got a barrel corundum along the bottom there, and then on the top you've got more of a hexagon type shape or matrix. And some of these you can really see, like here's a piece of untreated, unheat treated natural blue sapphire. You see the schist, and you can literally see the sapphire growing right out of that schist. And because the schist has a lot of aluminum in it and other metals, you get sapphires. Straight aluminum oxide is clear. You just get very, very clear pieces of it. I'm trying to find a piece that I had that was actually pretty stellar. That was real clear. Let's see, it's down below. Yeah, so here's some clear sapphire, corundum. And pure aluminum oxide is very crystal clear, but it's still going to form into this barrel or this bar-like shape. And very remnants of quartz. It looks a lot like quartz. And then there's something called milk sapphire. There's yellow sapphire. And yellow sapphire means that because pure aluminum oxide, if no other metals get near the aluminum oxide, you just get a piece of clear. But if you get sulfurs and hematites and materials like that, and irons, you can get a lot of yellow, canary, sapphire, corundum. Corundum and sapphire, and if they're red, they're rubies. If they're green, they're emeralds. If they're any other color, they're sapphires. They can come in any color under the sun. And the really unique thing about sapphires is that they're color changing. Really unique ones have color changing properties. A couple of these in here color change a lot. I'll get a light out and I'll show you that. But mainly the channel and the discovery of all this rough sapphire and corundum in the area really was made because we started finding tons of artifacts. And I'm more of an artifact hunter, archaeologist. I'm more into that human activity, finding all the old artifacts, trying to piece together this missing story of our past, because a lot of this stuff is far older than 13,000 years, so it rules out the Clovis first narrative big time. These people were carving and working with the sapphire. In the one creek that I find a lot of this, the alligator snapping turtle is this massive, monstrous turtle that looks like a dinosaur. It's got spikes all over it. They can get a couple 100 pounds old. They live for hundreds of years old. They've been around for 90 million years, their evolutionary lineage. And they were making all kinds of these little turtle effigies. Here's a little sapphire, yellow sapphire turtle scraper. Here is a shaft straightener. You see the eye, the mouth. We have ruby ore right here. So we got this green schist. And this is a really good sign that you're going to find ruby or corundum in the area. You get this green and red corundum filled schist, and you can see all the little tiny rubies down in there. Okay, and then some ancient people used a piece of this ruby rich ore here, this corundum ore we'll call it, to make two effigies of a turtle head here and here. We get hammers. This is a big piece of schist. Schist can be cut in both directions. So it was used for making all kinds of buildings, but the ancient peoples here were using it to construct all kinds of tools. These little tiny hammers, these little tiny files. And then this piece of schist here, you could see that all the little pieces of garnet coming out of it. Garnet is another gemstone you'll find in association with schist, and garnet also comes in every color under the sun except blue. If you start finding a lot of blue, it's most likely rough sapphire. It could be blue laced agate, and there's another one that begins with an L, not lapazul, but it's a periwinkle color. I forget the actual name of it. It's a mineral that's around here a lot. It could be mistaken for sapphire. The rough sapphire usually be this is really high quality because it's really light. It's a light blue sapphire. It's not heat treated. A lot of times the super clear sapphire you see is synthetic, lab grown, or heat treated to get clarity and things like that, a higher level of clarity. But this is all corundum or corundum ore. There's a gold sheen. This type of sapphire was found in Zambia or Zimbabwe back in the mid 2010s, 2010, 2015. Actually started finding a couple examples and really crazy pieces of this gold sheen. Here's like another gold sheen right here. I started finding crazy examples of these before the actual gold sheen sapphire was discovered scientifically, so I didn't even know what this stuff was. And then I figured it out after I started seeing images and pictures. Some more blue corundum back there. And if you get, so you got two really nice corundums here that color shift between blue and like purple. And this is a known color shift in sapphire. That means that the aluminum oxide was, the blue comes from ilmenite or titanium within the schist, and the color changing property comes from vanadium, vanadium, being in the area, which is slightly radioactive, which actually shifts the matrix of the light, refracts the light back differently. So essentially light is, cut up into a matrix of a rainbow. So if you take a prism and split white light, it'll split out into a rainbow. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, the colors of the rainbow. What happens with sapphire is the material, the trace metals in there that tint or color the sapphire and give it these weird color changing properties will only refract back certain colors within the rainbow. So that vanadium will, in certain UV light, reflect back the darker shades of the blue spectrum, and in other shades it'll go up to a lighter purple or pink spectrum. I can get this light is probably dying because it was on so long. Let's see here, it's pretty. But you can see that these will color shift. And now you get like this almost slate gray look, and then you get a darker color, and then you get like that purple or that blue. And you get real purple color there when the light's not on it. And of course you can see right through these things once the light is on there. You can see right into them. You get this rippling and these little divots, and that's the cleavage of the sapphire. It's so hard. Your really high-end lapidary quality right here, you see all the cleavage on the outside, these little bumps. This is cool because it's almost heart-shaped, but it looks like the home plate. That's a typical shape for a corundum. There's another one. There's another one. But not until you turn it to the side here do you see that beautiful pad paradassia yellow and orange and red matrice in this sapphire, pad paradassia sapphire. You get some rubies down here. Rubies are a little hard to identify because rough rubies look really not like anything special. And you can see how these things light up though inside. See if I can zoom in a little bit. But some of these are very high quality stones. Some have like are still in their matrices. Like this looks like a giant ring pop. This big ruby here. And this one is neat because it has a star. If I can get it into the right light, you can kind of see the star in the corundum here. It's like right in here, the star. Sometimes I have to turn the light off on here. Let's see. I can see it better now. Because I see the star there. It's got to be polished. But you can see the sharp faceting within the sapphire. I'm trying to get in the right light because the star is really neat on this. You can see it right. Yeah, there it is. It's just another hexagonal pattern within the matrix already. Well, this is a rough ruby right here. You get more pad paradassia type ruby right here, where you get like a combination of red and yellow, and it creates this pink color changing type stone. So you get the yellows and the pinks within the ruby mixing together, turns it into a sapphire known as a pink or orange sapphire, referred to as pad paradassia, one of the most expensive of all sapphires. And the place where I find these, there's absolutely a ton of this particular type. And the reason being is because of the minerals and materials in the area, along with the aluminum oxide. Here's a beautiful example of a pad paradacea right there. You see it's got a red crust with that yellow middle. When that's polished down, the light hits it right, it's going to reflect and change pink. This one back here is bright orange and pink and white. That's a pad paradacea. And when I get different lights on this, it can shift different colors. It's all very high quality stones though. They're all lapidary pretty much in here. It's a really rough, awesome corundum here, still in its barrel form. And I don't know what color it is. This is like a yellowish, almost like a coffee color. It's hard to say. Saw that brown, I guess, or yellowish brown. So cleaning and polishing this stuff is extremely difficult, and that's why it's very interesting, because we know the stuff goes from between an 8 and a 10 on the Mohs hardness scale. And so we know how hard it is, and the only way to really work with this stuff is you're not using percussion or flaking methods so much as you are using polishing and abrasion methods, kind of sand and water and these big rough grinding type stones, these grinding type tools. And you can see, like, you can still see where the strap was tied around that, staying the rock. We've got these crazy hammers made out of this really, really abrasive material that I can only explain as a type of schist or almost granite type material that is absolutely flaked with all kinds of metals and sapphires and aluminum oxides, titaniums, palladiums, pretty much creating an alloy that is super strong. This material here, they were using it because it's real rough. You can see how rough it is, but I find so many hammers made out of this stuff. Here's another hammer. You can see the groove cut out in this. And this thing almost looked like the top of a regular sledgehammer or pick from today, from modern times. You could see where this was, honed down so it could be shoved into a handle, so you get a bigger hammer. Yeah, magnetite hammer here. This might actually have some meteoric connection. I don't know if it's meteoritic or not. But always found in patterns and left next to each other, so matching artifact pairs near crossing points on creeks. They were using the corundum. We see more rough corundum back here. We have a hammer, a pick made out of it. We have a big saw blade, and this is Solutrean. This type of saw blade here, this artifact is a very important find, because this type of saw blade, the way this is shaped, and the material is corundum, rough aluminum oxide, brown corundum. This is a Solutrean style saw blade, and the Solutreans were a group of people that some theorize, and I believe so too, because I believe in diffusionalism, which means people knew how to build boats way sooner than we thought, and they could get across the ocean. So not everybody in America got here through the Beringian Pass or the land bridge thousands of years ago. I believe before that, Clovis culture, it's very corundum shaped back there. Before that whole Clovis culture paradox and paradigm was put in, I see a lot of axe heads and all kinds of stuff like that. Before that occurred, a group of people got here, and I think an older group of people was already here when this group got here. And this group was the Solutreans. I think they got here around 23,000 to 17,000 years ago. And I believe they were the ones that were working with the Sapphire, because these very diamond-like spearheads, very flat, non-flaked or just unifacially flaked, no fluting, and the fact that these are very precise tools, and then the artwork. We know the Solutreans were crazy artists that had these factories over in some of the sites in France and Spain that they found, where they literally had workshops making beads and ornamental things. And you could see the horse in that yellow sapphire, the side profile of the horse. You see its mouth, its eye, and its mane. And right there is where you would put your thumb, okay, for the tool. And you can see the back is completely flattened out. And the front, so this is a pressure flaking tool for napping. So you would hold it like this, have a piece of leather and your tool that you're working on the other hand, and just press down along the edges to nap the edges, to get the edges nice and sharp and flaked. And I can't think of a better tool to flake another rock than aluminum oxide. Aluminum oxide is more resilient and robust than a diamond. It's not quite as hard, but it's tougher. It's not going to break if it's hit with a hammer as easy. It's not going to wear out if it's used to file or polish things as quickly. It's not as brittle, but it's almost just as hard. It's a couple thousand times underneath of a diamond. It's between the 8 and 10. Some of them read as hard as diamonds sometimes with cheap testers. And you see a really nice clear piece of sapphire right there. A lot of people will think that was quartz, but unfortunately the properties, we started realizing a lot of the stuff wasn't quartz because it was way too hard and it just was not acting like quartz. Like especially when I found that mammoth head right there. So you have a mammoth head. The head itself is this dark bluish sapphire, rough sapphire. The back piece back here, the background of the mammoth's head, the relief area is schist. So they were able to find where the schist was growing out, or the aluminum oxide or sapphire was growing out of the schist, and they worked away and flattened and carved and shaped the piece of sapphire into a woolly mammoth's head, which has a lot of holographic properties in like candlelight. Looks like it's moving. And then what they did is you can really see some movement. You can see the tongue in there. You see its trunk. So you got its mouth and its tongue. It's roaring. It's from the side. Its mouth, its tongue, its trunk. It's got the two holes in the end of the trunk. Got the eye right here. Got an eye carved in there right here. And then you've got the ear kind of coiled back here off to the side. And this piece is just crazy. And the horse and the mammoth pendant were really kind of a breakthrough in a lot of ways, because you got to ask yourself, first of all, the horse in North America is a strange animal. The horse was apparently killed off during the Younger Dryas. So the Younger Dryas was an event where all the megafauna, all the woolly mammoths, the horses, the ground toad sloths, the giant armadillos, all the huge animals from the Ice Age all went extinct almost overnight. A lot of theories say that man, with their atlatls and spears, hunted all of these mass herds to extinction, which is absolute balderdash. It's crap. Because a lot of science is so compartmentalized, it fails to look at other sciences when it's drawing its conclusions. Obviously, there's a mass extinction event. Even with humans, about 70 and 80% of humans were wiped out overnight. We now know through ice core testing and further research, and a lot more has to be done, that around 13,000 years ago, a massive comet or meteor impacted the North American ice sheets, maybe multiple collisions. The ice sheets were 2 miles thick. They started about halfway up Pennsylvania, and everything else was ice. So if you live in Pennsylvania, where I am, you can imagine that half of your state was covered in ice, and that's where the North Pole started 13,000 years ago. All of this ice, 2 miles thick, a continent big, melted instantly and completely sunk all of what is North America under water and fire pretty much overnight. These people existed before that event happened, and they were making things that are similar to what they find at Solutrean sites. I don't think that, I'm not making an argument they were the first here. This isn't an argument about who got to somewhere first. This is just simply an argument stating that underneath 13,000 years, and then I have some artifacts like this here that are probably about 60,000 years that look more reminiscent to a Neanderthal because it's using fracture techniques, and that's a razor blade, and that is a percussion fractured blade in the style of a Neanderthal stone toolworking found right in PA. And I found that alongside of a fossilized bone at the same site. So I believe it was part of an old kill site. This is all fossilized bone. I am not a paleontologist. I do not know what kind of bone it is, but it is now rock. That takes at least 10 to 12,000 years to occur, if not longer, except if it's under some insanely weird conditions. There's also a semi-fossilized spearhead, because this was heat treated and carved, and then some stuff grew over it, but you could see this is fluted. Totally different design than these other smaller ones. Way older. Way more reminiscent of Neanderthals. In the same area, find a ton of fossilized coral, and even some things that we thought were arrowheads that ended up being, look, a fossilized fish, a tail, its pectoral fin, its eye. I think this little appendage, I think this is some kind of anglerfish from way back in the day, but this formed a really crazy fossil in the shale. Another fossil in limestone. This is some ancient bird's head or duck's head. You can even see the organs of the eye fossilized in there. The beak comes down. You could see that there was some stippling along the beak that was even picked up and fossilized. Fell face down in the mud, got covered up, got fossilized, got filled in with limestone over time, and formed a mold, and you got the head of a bird. That's why this area is extremely unique, because you'll find fossils, you'll find artifacts, you'll find gemstones, you'll find a ton of corundum. It's everywhere. And I liken it to like the old stories of the Mayans back in the day, and when the Spanish came and found them, and they said that they had so much gold that they were using it as their drain gutters. They were using it for everyday objects because it was so common in their environment. So gold didn't have the same value as it did as a commodity because it was everywhere. In the same sense that this super hard material is everywhere where I live, I think it just got overlooked, as quartz it can look very much like quartz, especially when it has dirt and water on it. We know there's tons of garnet in the area. Garnet can be any color, very hard, very close to a sapphire in its complex. So the last thing I'll talk about is polishing and shining the stuff. If you find really high grade corundum, you think it's corundum or sapphire, I have other videos that show you how to identify it. You can get hardness detectors for $12, $15 that can kind of give you a ballpark if you use them right. You can also do scratch tests. Sapphire is harder than a tile. It's harder than glass. So if you take a tile and you run a sapphire across it, it should never leave a mark on the tile. If you run a stone across the tile and it leaves the color of the stone behind the tile, you know it's softer than the tile. So it's not a sapphire whatsoever. But I have a whole video about testing you can check out. Cleaning them is a little bit rougher. When they're really dirty out of the creek, they're hard to tell, because this is like what rough corundum looks like. Rough corundum does not look like much. It kind of just can look like this, but then you'll start. This is what really rough, crude corundum looks like. That is not gemstone quality, like industrial quality, except that piece has a beautiful piece of white in it right there. You see the clear? Look at that giant piece of clear. So this is a good example. You got rough corundum here, but then you got a beautiful piece of crystal clear sapphire running right in that corundum right there. So you've got your shale. You got your schist, rough corundum, boom, really high grade corundum, right, a white sapphire right there, pure white sapphire. But a lot of this stuff is really, really rough, or speckled with some blue. Have one nice sapphire in it, and then you're looking at like placated feldspar back here, which is a silicate. If you have something that you think is a sapphire and you have like silicates running through it or other materials inside of it that are silicates, then you know it's not aluminum oxide. Remember, aluminum oxide, sapphire, or corundum cannot grow or not form in its little cocoon of oxygen if it is tainted with any kind of silicate. So in this area, we just have tons of schist, which forms in these sheets and these layers, and when it got cooked up, it literally formed a bunch of aluminum oxide, aka sapphires, and nutting stone back there, 3 holes in it. Smack, balance nuts to break nuts open. There's a sapphire rough corundum drill bit. And I mean, it's a perfect material to make a drill. Look at this. This is a beautiful piece of clear corundum, but you can see how much this looks like quartz. Okay, but you can see it's barrel shaped. You can see its formation, and you see that rough cleavage on the surface, that rippling. And we know that we have a corundum here. I put it in the artifact area because of where I found it contextually. So whenever I go out, now that I know there's a bunch of sapphire, I'll go out just gem hunting and things like that, and not really worry about the artifacts. But because I know that they were using this material in the same sites some 20,000 years ago, some unknown gemstone culture using all these. Look at this corundum right here. It's Pad Paradashia style corundum, but it was fastened into a drill bit. It's even got 2 little grips right there. And I can't imagine making a drill out of a better material. There's another corundum drill bit right here. So you can literally drill through mostly anything, probably right through metal with it. It's harder than most metals. So anyways, very interesting stuff with all the gemstones, but cleaning them, you don't, and polishing them and getting some of the nice ones all smooth and shined up, like this one in here that I put in this little crystal catcher thing here. I polished this blue sapphire up really, really nicely, just to test out some of the stuff that I have that I use. And what I use here mainly for the sapphire are diamond files. I got 3 different types here. And I'll use a wire brush to clean them and like, big buckets pretty much, or containers for lack of better terms. And I'll fill them with soap and water, sometimes some calcium, like the CRL stuff that gets rid of calcium, that type of cleaner. I'll use soap and water, mainly Dawn, super hot water, a little bit of rubbing alcohol, and Windex sometimes. And then I'll just take the scrub brushes, and I'll also take Brillo pads, and I'll just scrub them all initially to get all the dirt, gook, and bacteria off of them. And then if I have some smalls that are of really nice quality, and they can be polished or smoothed into a better looking piece, I first go over them with a palm sander, an electric palm sander, which I have over there, just to initially smooth them out. And then these are diamond files right here. So this is like metal, with really hard metal, probably titanium or some sort, and then it is literally coated in this industrial diamond. These are different sizes, and they're different courses. So this is the most coarse, second most coarse, least coarse. And what you can do with these is you get a little cup of water like such, and you'll put a sapphire in there like such, okay? And I'm going to put the light down so I can actually show you how this kind of works. Think of like a cheese grater almost, but for a rock. And you want to do this with water, but you take the stone like so, and you're just going to go back and forth against these things like this, because these are all little cutting edges. Back and forth, and this stuff will literally cut the sapphire down and shape it. It takes a long time. You're doing it by hand, but for a beginner, for somebody that like me that doesn't have any experience really cutting the stone, which is what I'm looking for, is a good stone cutter, so I can cut some of these higher end ones, see what they really look like when they're done. Maybe make some money off of them to help the channel further here. And then these are diamond coated sanding pads, and that's the last step, last polishing step, because it's finer, coarse, less coarse, fine, coarse, fine. This is the final one here. And these I just picked up on Temu. I know some people don't like that site. I love it. I get a lot of stuff from Temu. Once my channel actually becomes funded and become a partner with YouTube as it continues to grow, I will definitely look into giving them a shout out. But Temu is just a website. It's Chinese, I believe, but it's similar to eBay or Amazon, but cheaper items, items for really, really good prices, even like these shoes that I got on right here. But I mean, I think I paid $1.20 or something like that for each one, maybe. And the sponges were a couple bucks each. And I ordered them just to give them a try, and they work really, really well. You can also use a rotary tool or like a Dremel. And you can use diamond tips, and they have different diamond tips for the Dremels and whatnot. You can use a angle grinder if you get the right kind of blade. You get diamond coated blades or grinding wheels. But mainly, I have so much rough stuff that some of the big rough stuff I might cut into a bit and break it down. To maybe monetize it a little bit easier. And then some of the really, really high grade stones, which I have a few of them out in this container back here, I got to get those looked at because I don't want to undersell something. To like, some of these can be worth a lot of money, some of them not so much. And I mean, rough corundum, like I said, it's not much to look at. Like, this is literally rough corundum down here. And you know, once you identify where the corundum is at, that's a really nice piece of clear, but it'll start to look like this at first a lot of times. And this is what I call like industrial corundum. And if you look up corundum online, you'll see a lot that looks like this. And still very blocky, very hard. Same material, just not as pretty, not as pure. But still extremely, extremely good for abrasion and for tooling and for working on things like that. Some of it will have a reddish tint sometimes. Some of this might even be out of the corundum category into the category of embry, which is what we make embry boards out of the file nails. But anyway, I just wanted to show you a couple other little tips and tricks and show you where I'm at with some of this. And since there's a lot of new subscribers, just keep throwing out videos that are similar, that kind of summarize what we're doing over here at Happy Lost Souls. Website's going to be launching within the next month. I've been working aggressively on that, so we'll be getting some t-shirts, some one-of-a-kind merchandise up there, and also some rough gemstones that we'll sell. To help grow the channel and also help grow the research, and also anything bought on the website, a percentage of that's going to be rolled back in to organizations and charities that are geared towards water and clean water. I really think it's super important. When we have the amount of water that we have is what we have, and it's all relative amount of water on this planet. Like, sounds gross, but you can think of it as every time you take a drink of water, you're drinking Abraham Lincoln's pee, or Plato's pee, or Caesar's pee, or all water and liquid is just recycled, and we can't keep polluting and damaging it. And all of it's the artery and heart and epicenter for all of our wildlife, our watershed systems and our creeks and streams. But anyway, let's get out there. Let's start sharing. Let's start destroying the paradigms and the narratives that there weren't people here past 13,000 years in North America. I have a couple hundred artifacts easily that say otherwise, and I have a couple hundred artifacts that say people were here 60,000 years ago, and I've got several thousand artifacts that seem to indicate a mysterious group of people working with corundum, aluminum oxide, gemstones, making arrows, tools, cutters, files, pendants, art, jewelry with this corundum and sapphire. Here's some of these abrasion tools I was talking about for polishing, and this is how they would have polished and worked with the sapphire and shaped it and cut it. Also, pestle and mortar too can be used as. And that's the crazy thing about ancient stone artifacts. You have to use experimental archaeology to kind of reverse engineer what some of these tools did. We find these things, we know that they're worked on and formed by hand, but we don't exactly know the purpose of every tool. Stone was the choice material, and they weren't using metals, so literally all of their tools and all of their everyday stuff was made out of rock or stone, so they had to be masters of this material and understanding how to use it. But anyways, I love y'all. Stay happy. Get lost to find yourself. And if you're new, please subscribe. This is a real chill channel. We don't get political. We just like to talk about different theories about rocks. And if you're a rock hound and you like finding cool gems and rocks and artifacts too, this is the place for you. Please share if you find similar items. People find similar stuff all over this country. So it's this crazy mystery that we are still collectively working on solving. I have so much stuff, I don't have enough room to display it. I mean, you're seeing like a fraction of my artifacts and all that. I rotate the collections around. So check out my other videos. There's also a group of people that came after this in the same area that were mining silver in the area, known as the Susquehannocks. At least that's what I believe. That's what the evidence is showing so far in the archaeology. And, you know, let's find some real raw, rough silver ore. Yeah, so... Yeah, I mean, it's just a fascinating area, and if you've heard any of my other videos, most of this stuff, about 90% all comes from one creek, to be honest. So, what were they all doing in this area? Who was making these little gemstone points out of blue sapphires? Who was using this corundum 20,000 years ago? I think it was the Solutreans. Tell me what y'all think, and please subscribe. Love y'all. Peace!